Don't confirm that betting slip. Do not officially pick anyone until you watch this video. Now, Jamahal Hill and Khalil Rountree are fighting this Saturday, and this fight is very interesting because it has very kind of contrasting styles in a way, but similar styles in a way. And I feel like there's things people need to know and need to address before they have their official pick for this fight. Now, obviously, these guys have mutual opponents in Alex Pereira. You know, I know the fights went differently, but listen, you know, you can't MMA math max, but what you can do is you can look at styles. Breaking down fights via styles is how you get your pick right 99% of the time. Now, Khalil Rountree is very explosive, and so is Jamahal Hill. I want to say they're both explosive styles, but I feel like Jamahal Hill has most of the success being more of a reactive striker. Now, when I say this, Jamahal Hill does something where, like, you would throw at him and then he'll just throw back. And sometimes even in the midst of throwing, he'll throw right at you. Like, Jamahal Hill likes to be reactive because he likes to get the last shot. I call it ego striking. Like, someone hits you and then they got to be reactive and get the last hit because they want to look like they won the exchange. That's what Jamahal Hill, I feel like, thrives in. Like I said, they're both explosive, but the explosivity in their offensive, like when they move forward offensively, is so different via speed and strength. Like when Khalil Rountree blitzes you, you can see the explosivity. Ooh. When Jamahal Hill blitzes you, it's a lot more telegraphed and, like, predictable.
Yuri's had big moments.
And it looks like you could easily counter him, which is why he gets countered and finished in a lot of his fights. Like, Yuri Prochazka, he did have improved head movement, but Jamahal Hill's explosive movements always put him out of position. And it's not a good thing. And I'm going to say this as well. I've noticed with Jamahal Hill, sometimes when he's in close, like when he blitzes and does explosive stuff, he usually throws in like a long, predictable, looping straight punch somewhere to the body or to the head. When you get really close to Jamahal Hill, he has the tendency of kind of throwing looping punches, and Khalil Rountree kind of always thrives with throwing straight punches. That's his best weapon. Now, looping punches versus straight punches. You all know the moral of this story, guys. You know what happens when these styles conflict. I saw in the Yuri Prochazka Jamahal Hill fight, when they're in close and Jamahal Hill tried to throw that looping punch, he got caught with a straight and got dropped by Yuri. This is very concerning, especially because Khalil Rountree thrives in, like, just using his explosivity with his straight punches. And the fact that Jamahal Hill is kind of like reactive at times, as well as like he throws looping punches when you're in kind of close with him, it's just not a good look. And another thing that's kind of concerning to me is that I don't know how much people actually notice how bad Jamahal Hill's, like, footwork is, how bad his movement is. Every single Jamahal fight, people say Usman has bad knees. Bro, trust me, Jamahal has horrible knees as well. Jamahal Hill is always, like, kind of sliding about. He's not really ever, like, moving well. Of course, he had the ACL surgery. Like, his knees are cooked. In the Yuri fight, he literally had two knee pads on because he was physically in crazy pain. And Yuri is not someone who throws leg kicks, throws oblique kicks. Khalil Rountree throws oblique kicks. And when I say this, I mean it. Like, he's going to throw with intent. He does throw low kicks. It's essentially what that is. It's going to be sloppy footwork versus heavy low kicks. Now, that's in the lower half of the body. Like, in the upper half, it's kind of like explosivity versus kind of like slow, predictable, reactive striker. I feel as if in the striking realm, Khalil Rountree significantly ahead of Jamahal Hill. Like, significantly. But there's a con to this as well. Because I know it sounds like right now I'm like, damn, what the hell? Khalil Rountree's going to end up destroying Jamahal Hill. Khalil Rountree's explosive style, the reason his explosivity is a lot better and I want to say more effective than Jamahal Hill early on is because he uses a lot of gas doing that. Like, how quick he explodes into it, he uses a lot of energy. Now, the problem with losing a lot of energy is that later in the fight, you're starting to slow down, which happened to Khalil Rountree horribly in the Pereira fight. To be fair, Pereira does have a really good second win. Like, we've seen Pereira's second win in UFC 281 against Izzy. Like, he just has a good endurance, but so does Jamahal. I've noticed something that Jamahal kind of thrives in, like, dogfights the longer the fight goes. So if it's a really sloppy, ugly, disgusting brawl, Jamahal Hill 9 times out of 10 is getting the better of these exchanges. He's going in there. He might be throwing ugly, stupid, sloppy punches, might grab your head, he'll hit you with a knee. He's actually really good with knees and clinch. Like, he'll grab your head in some of these flurries and then hit you with some knees. He's very sloppy, but he's good at that. If the fight's ugly and the guy's starting to slow down, Jamahal Hill will put it on you. I seen him do it against Glover Teixeira. I seen him doing it against a lot of people. Like, the most of Jamal's, like, wars, he tends to do better as the fight elongates. Of course, against Yuri, that didn't work because from a technical standpoint, Yuri's superior. Now, that sounds crazy saying that. From a technical standpoint, Yuri Prochazka being superior to you is almost like you have to either, one, be kind of shitty technically, like I do think Jamahal Hill is, or you just have to have like no IQ. Jamahal Hill, he's so sloppy and he gets put out of positions. And one thing I do know about Khalil Rountree, if you are put out of position, he'll usually capitalize on that. You can't like throw something and miss significantly without paying the repercussions for Khalil Rountree, who hits hard, who hits like a truck, and he's quick. This fight's very interesting because for the most part, if it is just Khalil and I feel like Jamahal Hill striking, which I feel like it's going to be, because we could look at grappling, but most guys don't really tend to grapple. Khalil Rountree has never shot a takedown officially, which I think is weird. It's a little weird, because I feel like physically he's actually pretty strong in the clinch. When he has someone against the fence, he'll stomp on their feet. He's a big guy. He's strong physically. And Jamahal Hill is not someone who's going to shoot either. So I do think it's probably going to be a striking match primarily. But the big question and why this fight's actually uniquely... Now, I don't want to say hard to call, because I'm going to tell you who I think is going to win a little bit in my official prediction video. Full card is probably going to drop tomorrow. But as far as just like striking, I understand that like, yes, Khalil has susceptibility to fatiguing later on in the fight, but Khalil has to get later on into the fight. And then even then, if Khalil does fatigue, I can see Jamahal putting it on him, but not to the extent of Alex Pereira. Like Alex Pereira did get that 4th round finish, but Alex Pereira hit like a certain mode where Khalil was throwing back. But Alex Pereira just wasn't there. Like he was throwing back. Pereira was like boom, 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 boom. You guys know when Pereira hits that like little, I don't want to call it God mode, but it's kind of like a lowercase God mode. Like when he just starts going off and like it feels like you can't land on him. And then he's growing in confidence, and then he's so like overbearing with his presence, and he's so big. He starts to walk you down, back you up. It gets dangerous when you see situations like that with Alex Pereira. But Jamahal Hill never really has that mode. Instead, Jamahal Hill's more like, I'm just going to take your punches and then keep coming back and throwing them. The problem with that, though, you're playing a weird game with Khalil Rountree. Even though Khalil Rountree like fatigued against Pereira, he was still throwing back. And if some of those shots did land on Pereira, it could have stopped Pereira in his tracks. There was even sometimes he actually hit Pereira in the midst of him feeling himself. And like he would stop for a little bit, then reset, then go back to it. Jamahal Hill's lack of footwork is not going to help him in a situation like that. Like he's not going to move well enough to evade some of Khalil Rountree's shots. And this brings me to another point that kind of like I was talking about earlier, but I didn't really finish that thought, was Khalil Rountree being really explosive. I remember Pereira was able to evade some of those shots by being really quick on his feet and kind of jumping backwards. That takes a lot of energy, but jumping backwards, even something as simple as that, is almost required against a Khalil Rountree just to get out the way completely, because he's so quick and he's so dangerous that if one of those strikes land on you clean, he can probably push you out. Jamahal Hill's footwork and movement, sloppy, like he's so flat-footed and he's like a platypus. It actually gives me the chills, like a heebie-jeebies, bro. How bad he moves his feet. It's almost like he's sliding them on the ground in a very poor way that just looks disgusting to me. And I feel as if Khalil Rountree, when he explodes in those shots and like Jamal's going to need to kind of get out the way, he's not going to be able to move out the way quickly. He might lean back and get caught in the process of leaning back and then get sent flying, and then his lateral footwork, like left and right, is very slow. Like it's very like he goes to his left. He's very predictable too, because like even the way he moves, you kind of know when he's going to load up into a punch, which opens up him being countered by a lot of people, because he's just his footwork kind of negates all his boxing movements and makes his boxing a lot harder than it needs to be. Like if you're a good boxer, most good boxers in the UFC, like Peter Yan, Ilya Sapori, they move their feet really well. They're in and out pretty well. And even Islam Makhachev has pretty good boxing. Ankalaev, they move really well laterally and back and forth. Jamahal Hill's best weapon on paper, it is like kind of being his boxing and just his ability to make it a dogfight. I'll say that, I was looking for the right word. His ability to make it a dogfight, it's good, but it's all like slowed down because of his footwork and his legs. And his legs are only getting worse, which makes this fight, I don't want to say even easier for Khalil, but it gives Khalil a lot easier of an opportunity to go in there and kind of cook him. So Khalil Rountree versus Jamahal Hill, like I know people are saying, oh, it's going to be close. And I just see the odds. I think Jamahal Hill's a slight underdog, but he should be a bigger underdog, in my opinion, than what he even is. Because I do think it's his fight to lose. He's going to need to make really good adjustments. But physically, I don't think he's going to be able to make the appropriate adjustments to beat a Khalil Rountree, because you can't really change your physicality. Now, Usman had bad knees in his last fight. How did Usman overcome that? Grappling. Jamahal Hill's not a grappler. He's not a wrestler. And Jamahal Hill has an ego problem, and I feel like part of him being a really reactive striker at times, like when he gets hit, he always got to get it back, and he just always got to get the get back, is because he has an ego. Ego striking is kind of stupid. I think Hamza does it too sometimes. You see Hamza like get off his game a little bit when he's getting outstruck and tries to get it back so bad. You know, he did it against Gilbert Burns and stuff. Like he did against Usman a little bit. Ego strikers, they don't like losing exchanges, so they always want to get the last lick. But someone like Jamahal Hill is really sloppy in his exchanges. Him trying to get the last lick just puts him out of position a lot more and gives him the opportunity to be countered a lot more. This is why it's concerning. This is why this fight's a problem and why you need to know this information before the fight starts. Because if you do have Jamahal Hill winning for whatever reason, which I wouldn't mind the opinion, if you're like most people who are picking Jamahal, if they're not picking Jamahal solely based off him having pretty decent cardio and Khalil Rountree kind of fatiguing at moments, then they're just picking him because they don't know what they're talking about. They don't watch film. You know, as someone who actually watches film prior, I understand that Jamahal Hill's best chance is to kind of hope for Khalil Rountree to fatigue. But even then, he's going to have to put like an absurd amount of pressure like Pereira. Pereira was walking him down the whole fight, forcing Khalil to explode into these shots. You know, if Jamahal Hill's going to kind of stand in front of him and play that game he's playing with Yuri, it's not going to go good for him because first of all, Khalil Rountree is probably not going to fatigue, and then second of all, he's going to be able to like last in the 4th and 5th round. If you like, he just doesn't have to get knocked out because he's going to win the first couple rounds, in my opinion. You know, unless Jamahal Hill can hit him with something really meaningful. But I do think early Khalil is pretty defensive responsible. He always has a high guard. He actually knows how to move well laterally, in contrast to Jamahal Hill, who doesn't even know what lateral movement is. So it's going to be it's going to be a really hard fight for Jamahal Hill to win, in my opinion. I just don't see him going in there against someone like Khalil Rountree, who moves really well laterally and really explosive, a lot quicker, a lot more powerful, you know, a lot stronger physically. I have a hard time seeing Jamahal Hill, despite the height advantage and the reach advantage, just outstriking him. Like Pereira had a bigger height advantage and reach advantage against Khalil than Jamahal Hill does, and he was still able to land on Alex and put him in a lot of compromising positions that I think Alex was able to survive because he's so tough. But I don't necessarily think Jamahal Hill's going to be able to eat some of these punches, especially after the Yuri fight. Like, where he went through a war, yes, it wasn't competitive. Like, yes, he won the second round, but rewatching that fight, I was like, damn, Yuri was really in control of that whole fight because Jamahal Hill was just putting himself in stupid situations. Khalil Rountree will capitalize on those situations as well. So I do think Khalil Rountree is going to go in there, bro, and beats on him, Dr. Dre, hands on him, lots of base. But let me know what you guys think, man. At the end of the day, I think I don't know who I like more. I don't really have an opinion on either guy. They're both cool to me. You know, I think I'm more of a fan of Jamahal in a way, but I don't know. But we'll see what happens. I do think Jamahal Hill, it's his fight to lose, and it's Khalil Rountree's fight to win. You know, Khalil being a slight favorite, though, there's some money to be made there. But let me know what you guys think down below. That's it for me, and God bless. 2, 3.